a really good beginner workshop for Sketch. Glad to have you on board. My name is Sean Patrick John Paul George Ringo Duran. That's my real name. And I'm Director of Design here at Wiretap. So a little bit of my background is I went to OSU, I got a degree in essentially UX, but that's not the title. I did e-learning development and multimedia design at a consulting company, and then I went to Nationwide, and I was on part of their Spot team, which we did lots of innovation, R&D, and prototypes. And then from there, I met the guys that started Wiretap. And then when they broke off and sort of needed more people to sort of see their dream come true, they hired me on board, and here I am today. So welcome. So for this workshop, it was aimed at just entry-level Sketch, sort of basics of how to use the tool, why you should use the tool, why you shouldn't use the tool, other things out there, things to avoid, things that you should do, best practices, as well as resources going forward. And we have a wide range of people here, mostly developer, illustrator, designer, prototyper, developers in training, career switches. It's all good, which is awesome. And I always like to start off with sort of things to cover. I know that we covered a little bit in the beginning, and I sort of know a little bit from the surveys when I sent them out last week. But does anyone have anything to add to here explicitly for things to cover before you leave today? And you can say no. Okay. With Sketch or just design in general? Okay. Cool. Got that down. Any other thoughts and inputs? It's all good? Cool. What was that? Cool. All right. So I think a good place to start, why I put it at the top, is Sketch versus all the other things out there. And then we can sort of get into why you should be using Sketch for certain things. So the other things out there are, I would categorize them into like, oh geez. I have so many tabs open. There's like, I think 3 or 4 big competitors to Sketch. First one being Figma. Has anyone heard of this? Yes? No? So Figma is a browser-based design tool. That means doesn't matter what platform you're on, Linux, Mac, Windows, you're using the browser and you can do prototyping in it as well. In addition to that, you have all these comment features where you can add like little tooltips and be like, hey, just wondering what your thoughts are on this, which sort of integrates all of like the design process from like wireframing to actually doing the visual design to the handoff between the designer to the developer, whoever is going to implement this thing. It's really cool. Pricing is a bit different. It's free up to a certain limit, and then, as you can see, per month per person that uses it. And then enterprise is like, yeah, contact us. We're going to charge you a lot. So that's Figma. One that just came out that isn't available to everyone is by InVision. So who has heard of InVision? Yes, yes. Cool. Have you used InVision before? Okay. Yeah, with InVision, it is, they have a lot of money, venture-backed. They have a lot of capital to just create lots of cool things. So the newest thing is the InVision Studio. Their primary thing before this point in time has just been prototypes. How do you create something that's clickable? You can comment on things, share them out, and have something that you can then interact with and then do the design somewhere else, and then import the screens into this. With InVision Studio, they're like, you know what, let's cut out the middleman. Let's actually create our own design tool. So it is still in like beta mode. I am in line to get it. I know a couple people that have downloaded it and played with it. It's pretty cool, but it is it's a new kid on block that not everyone has access to. And this is the video. So it's sort of cool. As you can see, if you notice, this is sort of the same layout as Figma. There's like this thing on the right, something on the left, canvas in the middle. And it feels like that's how most of these like newer design tools are sort of made. This one is not web-based. It's like a downloadable app. But it's pretty cool. Again, I haven't played with it. I have only seen this video. But as you can see, you can do this prototyping thing as well, and you can create animations and see how everything feels. So that's another player in the game. And last, there is Adobe XD. So has anyone heard of Adobe XD? Yes? So it's made by Adobe. I wonder which one this is. And it's as if they took like the bare bones of Illustrator and then tried to make it sort of like Sketch. And I have it here. So I can create a new website. And as you can see, layers and stuff on the left, this inspector view on the right, canvas in the middle. It is not as fully fleshed out as something like Sketch, but what is sort of cool is this prototyping mode. You have a shareable link, and then you can share it out to anybody. So you don't have to put this into something like InVision to then share this out. But it is somewhat basic in its sort of feature set. So there's that. And then two other tools that I'll just sort of mention, but I wouldn't recommend them for anything like prototyping or trying to translate it from design into like some kind of implementation would be Illustrator, which is Adobe Illustrator. You can do it in there, but I feel like you have way too many tools within there that they sort of crowd what you want to actually probably be doing. As well as Photoshop, same idea. And then Affinity Designer. And that is a Mac-only thing, but it is comparable to comparable to Illustrator, just not made by Adobe. And they have a whole suite of programs, sort of like Adobe, that are just like one-to-one correlations, but they are, how do I go to things? Their website is fun. So yeah, this is, you can do UI stuff, but I've seen it mostly used for like illustration. Same thing for Adobe Illustrator. So that is, I feel like, the landscape of design tools. There are like probably 10 or 15 other ones, but those are the big players. So, Sketch. And I do have to give out a shout out to Sketch. I don't know if you saw the email, but I reached out to their community sort of leader that just is in contact with like meetups and groups around the world that are teaching Sketch. But I do have 2 free licenses to give out. So we'll do like a raffle somehow. Put that out there. And we're going to get swag. They didn't get in today because I reached out to them like Wednesday. So afterwards, we can figure out how to get for swag. No, it's shirt, buttons, pins, stickers. Who knows? But you won't leave empty-handed. So yeah, Sketch. Sketch is cool. It is Mac only, which sort of, if you are thinking of like how you're going to implement this within your team or yourself, you do want to be sort of aware that if you're going to share a sketch file, the other person does need a Mac. That is like, I can't tell you how many times that it's like, oh yeah. The last workshop I did, someone just had a Windows PC, and they're like, oh, I tried to download it, but I couldn't. I was like, yeah, man, I don't know. Do you have like $1,000 or $2,000 just to buy a new computer? So that's that. What's sort of cool is their pricing structure. It is $99 once, and you get 1 year of updates. You can still use the program after a year. You just won't get updates. So that's their way of like halfway in between a subscription model and not. One thing to note with this is that if I have a newer version, let's say 50, and you have Sketch 49, if I create a sketch file in 50, you cannot open it in 49. So then it's like, if you have a team, you probably all want to upgrade at the same time. So just one thing to note with that.
You could open a 49 and a 50.
Yes. So that's how they are doing their business model. It sort of makes sense. You're not like limited within your tool usage, but just collaborating with other people then becomes a thing. And one thing we could possibly cover later, but is sort of cool. Yeah, Sketch Cloud is a way to upload your documents, Sketch documents, into just the cloud that's owned by them. And we can get into that a little bit later, as well as the free Mirror app, which is sort of nice if you're doing anything sort of mobile related. You can then sort of interact with stuff on your phone or tablet, which is cool. So yeah, that's Sketch and all the other tools.
Let me ask you a question. What is it about Sketch that sets it apart from Vision App or others as far as why is it becoming the standard?
Yeah. At a bigger scale, personally, I like it because browser-based. One and extensions, because right out of the box, Sketch is pretty simple. You can do what you want to do easily, and it's lightweight enough that you're not going to have to like wait for things to happen. But once you get along and you're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I had something that automated this? Sort of like Photoshop actions or any kind of scripts within the Adobe suite. Sketch has tons of plugins, and they're mostly free, which is also really nice. So you can just go out there and then be like, I need something that just duplicates things really fast, or like, I don't want to make like an avatar, someone's name, sort of their role, and then like a brief description of them 20 times. You can just have something that auto-generates that content for you. So you're not really working on stupid stuff, you're working on a design and how things should work rather than doing work on trivial things that a computer can do way better than you. So,
Can you make your own?
yeah.
Whatever?
So there is a whole swath of extensions. There we go. There is developer documentation. One thing to note, I think it's in like CocoaScript or something that's like not the most common development language. So they do have lots of resources to sort of like help you on that path, just because it's not the most normal, like, oh yeah, just use JavaScript and do what you want. And I know they do have also like extension like hackathons, just like, hey, come out here, we'll feed you and stuff, and just create cool extensions. That would be awesome design tools for the designers.
There's actually a list of those mentioned in one of those bulletins or whatever.
Oh,
So that link out to.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's also cool is, since most of them are free, let's say, sketch syntax highlighter. So I use this once just because you don't want to like highlight code within a sketch file, because you would have to highlight everything and know what to highlight. If you notice, this is on GitHub. So I'm just going to get rid of that top one. Oh no, GitHub sketch syntax highlighter. So you can then see the source code of how this thing works, which is pretty cool. So you can come in here, tweak with things if you want, do a pull request, fork it, create your own. So that's for most of the extensions out there. You can sort of hack at them if you like. Cool. I can go away. Cool. So I feel like that covers that. If everyone's cool, we can move on to maybe not symbols, but just like a general overview of Sketch. Cool. So here we go. I'm going to create a new document real quick. And I don't have my toolbar. I'll do this real quick. Show toolbar. There we go. So this is a general sketch window. And my toolbar up here is probably going to look a little bit different from yours. To customize it, you can right-click it or two-finger click it. You can hit Customize Toolbar, and then you'll see everything you can drag up there and sort of have at your disposal. So you can customize this to your needs, what you want to do. And I just updated to the recent version with prototyping. So now I have this like cloud, link, and preview buttons that I didn't have before, that they just auto-populated there. This is usually my tool belt up here. Then over to the left is a layer list. So right now we don't have anything going on. So what I'm going to do is create a new artboard. So I usually do lots of shortcuts. So I'm going to do a couple non-shortcut things just so you can see me doing stuff. But I'll keep iterating what the shortcut is. So if I want a new artboard, this is one way of doing it. Once I click that, I have like a little crosshair. And if you notice on the right-hand side, as soon as I go into Artboard, it gives me all these like predetermined pixel dimensions for my canvas. So I can come over here. If I don't want an Apple device, I can get Android devices, responsive web, paper sizes, or custom ones that you just have made yourself. This makes it pretty nice. And then you can swap the vertical landscape orientation. So for this, I'm just going to click iPhone 8, then boom, we're off to the races. So now I have an artboard right here in the middle of my canvas. On the left-hand side, I have my artboard with nothing in it. And then on the right-hand side, if you notice, my inspector is about the thing I'm selected on. So you'll notice on the right-hand side, this is context sensitive. So whatever I'm clicked on, that will change depending on what that is. Also, I have this plugin that's Anima. Don't worry about that. I'll minimize it. But if you're not seeing that, that's OK. You shouldn't see that. Also over here, this sidebar is another extension called Craft that is made by InVision themselves. And what's cool with that is you can easily sync from Sketch to InVision, but also now it's probably not going to be as useful, but the fact that you could do prototyping within here using that plugin. Now Sketch has it built in. But it has another cool couple things, such as auto content generation, and if you had lots of duplicative stuff, you can have it smartly do it for you. So that's just what that sidebar is. So I'll minimize that. Cool. So I have my artboard, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw in, I guess, a star, just so I have something to talk to. So you notice on the left-hand side, I now have a star. Star shows up here. Right-hand side, stuff about that star. And if I want another star or a polygon, let's say, click that, drag, make a weird-looking polygon. And if you notice, my polygon doesn't go all the way to this like box. So Sketch, with some of these shapes that are like polygon and star and triangle, gets a little weird in the sense that it doesn't do what you expect, but it's doing what the computer expects. Just because from here in this polygon, I can then change the sides over on the right-hand side, so it now fits that box. Before, it was not fitting the box exactly, just because it was like, hey, if you add more points, this will eventually be where it was.
Can you reset bounding box?
Such a, like,
Illustrator has a reset bounding box and it fixes it?
yeah.
Or anything like that?
The closest thing to that would be flatten. As you can see, it sort of reset the bounding box. But now that I've flattened it, I don't have like that option to like change the amount of points in this polygon.
No.
Yeah.
You can have a polygon. You can change the star and make it the bottom shape.
Yeah. So, so with the star, you can, yeah, you can essentially do the same thing with amount of points, and adjusting the radius as well. Yep. So the reason why I have polygon, star, and triangle up here is because I don't use them that often, but when I do, they don't really have a shortcut key set to them. So it's easy to just come up here and just click it. Luckily, I don't make much with those shapes. So now I have a triangle, polygon, star, and we're on page 1. So there's a concept of pages where you can have multiple pages and have as many artboards within a page. So I just click like the expander option, and I can create a new page here. So I can have page 2, and as you can see, I have a completely blank canvas with nothing on it. Going to go back to page 1. There's my thing. So what's cool with Sketch is it is an infinite canvas. So you can have as many artboards as you want in here, and it will not yell at you. One thing to note, though, is too many artboards with lots of complex stuff, it'll just go a little bit slow while you're on that page. So you can have another page with just half those artboards, and you'll be fine. Just the way it's built, it's sort of nice that way. And how I usually organize it is I usually have a page of just like wireframes, and then per like screen flow I have per page, just so I keep everything organized logically in my head and within the document. And then also going from like left to right, or left, and then up and down if I want to do like variations. That's just my organizational method. Cool. So we got pages, got artboard, got stuff on there. So let's do something like creating another artboard. So you can go up here and click artboard. You might have like insert, and then it's a drop down. I'll actually get that. The first one. Hey, there it is. Cool. So as you can see, I have lots of symbols and stuff with that. We can get into that a little bit later. These are like the basic things up here. And shape includes everything. So if you notice on the right-hand side, there are these letters, V, P, T, A, S, H. If you just click that letter on your keyboard, that will then let you do that thing. So if you notice, Artboard is A, handy to know. So I just click A. I now have my little cursor. I can then drag and create the artboard. Boom. If I wanted to make a square artboard, for example, I'll press A. And sort of like Illustrator or Photoshop, if you hold down Shift, it'll scale it like as a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to make a star here. If you want a star in the middle, hold down Shift as well. Also, sort of like Illustrator, is if you hold down Alt and Shift at the same time, it'll scale from where your mouse started at, if that makes sense. So if I'm going to start my mouse up here, hold down Alt and my star middle will start where I started my mouse, instead of from the top left. So that's nice. So now I have lots of stars. And if you want to duplicate things, so if I want to create even more stars, you can do the normal like copy, like Command-C, Command-V. I now have a star, Command-V, V, V, V. Or you can click it, have it selected, hold down Alt, and then that will let you do a duplicate of that. Just makes it really easy to hold down Alt and then click and drag. And then another modifier key you can have on that is Shift, and that will let you drag up, down, left, or right, but not diagonally. So that makes it easier if you're going to do lots of items in a row. You can just hold down Shift, and you know that they're aligned. And if you notice, the artboard cuts that off. So anything outside the artboard is not visible. So when it comes time to export this, that just won't be shown. So let's say if I want to change this artboard, I can come here and grab these little handles and move them. I can also come over here and type in stuff. So if I know I wanted this to be a 500 by 500 artboard, boom, click that, tab it over, and do that. So now I have an artboard that fits my stars. Or if I wanted an artboard that was fit to the objects inside of it, that's what resize to fit does. And now it's just that, which is sometimes handy, especially if you've adjusted something and you want it exactly it. So now we have multiple artboards. We have multiple pages, but we don't have stuff on multiple pages. I'm just going to grab these artboards. I'm going to hold Shift so I can select with them multiples. So these three. Same thing for any other object. You can just hold Shift and you'll keep selecting them, adding them to your selection file. You can Command-C and then paste. So you can then copy and paste artboards just as you'd expect any other object on a computer. And are you guys?
I don't get what you did to, like, I have to right click and say, like, select the artboard.
So if you scroll up a little bit, so if you click on like, yeah, right there.
Okay. So
That's a good thing to note.
place to click.
There is a special place to click. Right where the name of the artboard is the best place to click, or the place to click. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's one of those things that I've never thought about until now.
I could select them over here in the little names.
Yeah. So if you didn't want to do the canvas way, you can definitely come over here within the layer list, totally select them. So if I do that, it does also select the layers themselves, just because it's sort of like a file picker. It's going from that to the bottom. So if you wanted to do the same thing that I did over here on the left-hand side, instead of holding Shift, it's Command. So holding down Command will let you select things individually without doing like from A to Z, which is good to know. So now we have that. And then I'm just going to go click on one of these shapes real quick, and I'm going to mess with it just so they're not gray blobs. So how Sketch handles shapes is a little bit different than like Photoshop or Illustrator with layers. Is essentially a shape is an object that can have a couple properties, and it can have multiples of them. So right now this has a fill of gray and the blending mode's normal. If I hit this plus button, I can add something on top of that. Same, just one object, but there's now multiple layers within that object, or fills. And then from here, I can actually press the plus button again. And if you notice, this thing keeps popping up. This is your color picker. And you can have 6 different modes of how you select a color, or variations of displaying the colors. One is a solid color. So this is exactly like how it sounds. Other one's a gradient. And this is going from some color to another color. You can also add colors to that gradient. So if I wanted something in the middle, say red, that then shows up there. A handy trick with this as well is, let's say if I wanted this like directly in the middle, but I can't really like eyeball that. If you press 5, that'll be half. If I did 3, it's 30-ish%. I wish you had more granularity there, but it works in a pinch. Yeah. So in addition to that, I'm going to create the most hideous shape known to man. I'm just going to keep adding stuff. So this is a radial gradient. If you notice on the left-hand side, we have this circle. The point in the middle is the point where it starts, and you can move that around. So I'm just going to move it over here. And if you notice, I see these like red lines, and it's telling me that like it's being aligned to something. A polygon is a bit weird shape to do that with because there's a lot of things that it can be aligned to. If I were to create just a normal rectangle, square over here, and if you notice, I made this outside of any artboard. You can have stuff off of artboards. Just it's easier to keep things contained within like a screen, website, something like that. But sometimes I put things on the side, just like don't know where else to put them. So I can come in here, do the radial thing. It's still giving me lots of red lines. Weird. And then from here, you can also like adjust the size of the radial gradient, as well as if you don't want it to be a circle, you can make it fat and skinny, depending on what you're looking for. There's also the segmented one. It's I don't know the exact term for that, but then you can hit a start and end point. I think it's conic. And same idea applies here. You can change colors and change where they are within this circle. The last two I don't use as much. One would be a picture fill. You can actually throw in an image here and have it fill the whole container, fit itself within that container, stretch it out, or tile it if it's a very small image. It gives you these by default. I'll just say tile. Sometimes they're useful. One thing to really note is when we're exporting things out is that they will be the size that they are in here. So sometimes when you export things out at a scale that's bigger than what you have on your canvas, and we'll get to that a little bit later, they'll be blurry. Especially with grain, which is the last fill. This will always be blurry if you export it at anything else other than 1x, which is like the normal resolution of what's happening here. So I only do it if I know I'm going to be exporting something out at 1x, and if I really need or want that effect. And from there you can mess with the type of noise they all sort of look the same, but not really. So that's a shape itself. And I've only been like adding new fills, but you can disable fills from coming in. You can change the blend mode, which are sort of, these are hard to explain. Just messing around with them is the best way to learn how blend modes work. Yeah. So the basic way to think about these is, though, these things are like more subtle. Difference and exclusion are like opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're intense. And then these are really more on the color side, where hue is like the red, green, blue, saturation, color, luminosity are sort of self-explanatory. So blend modes, once you play around with them, you sort of figure out what works, what doesn't. But it just takes a little time to just mess with them. What's also nice is you can then come in here. So I'm just going to actually make something look good for once. I'm going to have a circle. And then I'm going to have the background be, let's say this purple. And if you notice down here, I have some global colors. These are like the wiretap colors that I use all the time. I have 0 document colors, which would only pertain to this sketch file, which is sometimes handy if you are working on a project and you're like, I don't want this like littering all of my other projects. These colors are only specific to this document. But you can also add at any time or remove colors from there. So I'm just...
Plus, I'll add that color to this document.
Yeah, so if I wanted this like cool tealish thing, I press plus, it's now in my global colors. Down here I can do document colors. Yeah. Oh, you're good. Sweet. Also, you'll notice over here, you can sort of choose your color, choose the spectrum. Right down below it, though, is how much opacity you want within the color itself. So as I'm changing this, if you notice on the right-hand side, that A value is going up and down. That's the alpha channel.
I think this part of Sketch, the color wheel, especially with gradients, is probably the weirdest. I don't know why. It's slightly different than other ones.
It is.
And
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's just something off with it. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, I think it's because it just pops out. That's one thing, and then they just put everything related to a color in here. It's not like you can have it someplace else. It is limited to this.
And the other weird thing is that, well, I like this color picker. It acts as like the operating system color picker. So you can grab a color from anywhere on a screen. And that's the nicest piece. And unlike the Adobe products, it actually is the true color.
Yeah.
Adobe brings it and changes it to the color mode that you're in.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Yeah, there are some things with the color picker. And I can send an article out later. If you happen to use this eyedropper tool and you select a color, even the color that the object that currently is, it sometimes changes it just slightly. It depends on your color profile on your computer itself. Since it is reading the system color, again, I can send out an article because it's really nerdy, but once you experience it, you're like, I don't understand why this color is not the color that it is. I don't know how it...
You're trying to get the pink out of the little Siri icon up there.
Yeah. Oops, sorry.
It will come up
it
will come up a few times in your life, and you're like, why is that happening? And you won't know why, but that's the exact reason.
Yeah, so it's really just possibly something on your computer change your color profile for your whole entire display. And then it just changed how this color picker works. If it's fine, don't worry about it. You'll never have to deal with it. But just know if that's happening, go to the link I sent you and then be like, ah, okay, this is how you fix it.
The color picker is kind of like the lazy person way of selecting a color, and I'm guilty. I use it like 90% of my it's because of that color issue. But, sorry.
You're good.
No, it's my only issue that I have with Sketch is that color picker. Or the color.
Yeah. One thing that mine is probably a little bit different than yours if you haven't messed with it. I have this hex color and then HSB. By default, you have RGB, which is red, green, blue. If you click on that, it's not the most intuitive way of changing it, but if you click it, it changes from HSB to RGB. Yeah, you would never know.
What'd you click on?
You click HSB or RGB, just that. Yeah, there's like an outline and then it switches.
That's super bizarre. I would never.
No, it's a good thing to know though.
For the newbies over here, I know what RGB, but what is HSB?
Yeah, so RGB and HSB are different ways of telling a computer what a color is. RGB is red, green, blue, which we're probably all used to, just mixtures of that. HSB is hue, saturation, brightness. The reason why I like HSB is, as a human, if I adjust the brightness, that makes sense to me. So I can click here, and if you notice, I get that little scrubby arrows. I can then just come in here and like make the saturation more or less. If it's RGB, like I'm just making it more green. But how do I make it darker? Do I add more blue? No, it just makes it more blue. So HSB is just how I like to look at it. One thing to note is if you're trying to implement this in like CSS, you can't use HSB values. You have to use HSL, which is hue, saturation, luminance. And brightness and luminance aren't the same thing. So if you were to put this in like HSLA 179, 62, 65, that will be a slightly different color than what you see here. I just know this because I was trying to implement stuff last week, and HSB is not HSL. There's a lot of math behind why that's not.
Is there a converter out there then?
There is a converter, yep. But you probably won't have to deal with HSB color values. You can stick with a normal hex value or RGBA values if you needed that alpha channel for opacity.
So, the RGBA would pretty much be a conversion.
Yep.
Just put those numbers in.
Exactly. Yep.
So make your adjustments in HSB and then
Just click it over if you want, yeah. And what's nice is we here use Envision. So what's nice is with all our artboards and screens, there's an inspector mode, and if you click on something, it gives you all the details of the item. So if you didn't want to do it that way and you just want to use this tool, I'm going to bring up Sublime Text real quick just so I have a text editor. Put this over here. And then what I can do is I can right-click this. I have lots of options, but the one that concerns us right now is, well, two things. You can copy CSS attributes, which then you can just take it here, come over here, paste it. This was a very simple object, but if you notice, the background color is that. And it tells you, like, as a comment, this is an oval. So if you grabbed everything on your artboard, did that, you could have an export that you can then sort of tweak how you like. So that's pretty handy. The other one is, let's say the star thing. I can right-click it, and if I get copy SVG code, this is where it gets fun. It is the literal SVG. I'll save this out so it gets the formatting. So this is my SVG that I got from Sketch. Now I can do whatever I want with it in HTML. What is SVG? That's a good question. Yes, scalable vector graphic. So there's two ways to have an... So there's two ways to sort of have an image. There is a rasterized image, which is like a photo. There's pixels. Every pixel has some kind of value, like it's brown, purple, black, and there's lots of pixels. And SVG is based on points. It's a scalable vector graphic, which means there's vector-based, and that's just, it's all math. And I actually have started reading a book on SVGs and like how to manually create them. Like, what do all these things? Yeah, it gets weird. There's like 18 letters, lowercase and uppercase, and they all do some kind of thing. You just have to have a reference guide because it doesn't make any sense.
Cats actually did
It is a presentation.
Presentation on it. Got into some of that, but not too in-depth.
Yeah. So you can do a lot of cool things with this on the development side. Since it is like an object, that it's just like this is raw HTML elements. You can then add like a class name in here, and then you can style it however you like with JavaScript or with CSS. And then you can then modify it in any way, shape, or form. Also, since it's vector, it's infinitely scalable, so you don't have to worry about sizes of anything. The thing that might trip you up is like width, height, and view box. We won't go into that here, but just know that those determine how big the SVG is and how the contents of the SVG is displayed. So, pretty cool. You just right-click and you get the goods.
And add to the coding side of that too. There's different ways of embedding an SVG in your code.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to just use the image element in the source that's an SVG, that works. But you can do an inline object too.
Yeah.
So there's really not one. I would actually, for like a logo, I usually do an image just because then it has some SEO value to it.
Yeah.
You can also control it remotely as opposed to injecting code on the page. But then you can also do remote. There's two different ways that you can do it.
Yeah.
Mobile stuff I usually do images or an image tag.
So just because everyone here seems to be on some kind of development side, might as well bring this up. So this is the inline method that Kevin was talking about. It's literally just in my HTML. I just brought up CodePen. Is that everyone familiar with CodePen? Cool. So yeah, I just threw it in there, and now I have it. So I can then change these and make it like 140. Life is awesome. So that's one way. I don't have CodePen Pro, but you can also do that image tag, then say like, hey, find my star SVG, and it'll throw it in there. One thing to note with this is since it's being called from here, you can't directly manipulate it, as in you can't have a class name to this SVG or interact with the elements within inside of it. So if you notice, this thing has like page 1, which is in reference to the fact this was on page 1 of our artboard. It should say then oval somewhere. Yep, the ID is oval because the name of our layer was oval. And then this is the fill, right? These things are just like, I guess the center of the X and Y where it started from. So the circle is really easy to read. Other things, not so much. But then you can manipulate that with JavaScript however you may, which is pretty cool.
Animation, especially if you have different shapes within the SVG.
Mm-hmm.
Fox and whatnot.
Yeah. SVGs, I love them.
Just throwing in one other thing, like it does come across as like there's IDs, so it gets really important to also organize your layers inside of Sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm very strict on naming conventions inside, and also the order. So I think that's something I would also show later on.
Yeah. If you,
is this selecting the board?
Mm-hmm.
If you do it wrong, like, you have to do it right from the beginning. It's one of those things to go back and
Mm-hmm.
do. It's like you might as well just reset.
Yeah. If you know that you're going to be exporting them out use them like this and then manipulating them, yeah, naming is a pain, but you know, it's fun. And then just so you know, like some of this is boilerplate. Like you don't need this thing that says generator. You can get rid of that. This description thing, you don't need that. Definitions for this instance, you don't need that. I feel like we're all nerdy here. With definitions, you can have references to things. So let's say if I had a repeating pattern. I'm just going to come in here real quick.
The short of it is you can also take this. There's a bunch of free online tools to optimize, and it'll take out all the unnecessary stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a series of like a series of like 50 toggles to turn on and off. But it's amazing. You can reduce the size of an SVG dramatically. Yeah.
This is one web-based one called SVG Oh My God, or SVG Oh My God. You can drag stuff in here and do things. There is a command line version of this just called SVGO, which is SVG Optimizer. But yeah, there's a couple other ones, I feel like, but those are the two that I know.
I don't know why we're talking so much about SVGs, they're great, but the last thing I will say, and then I'll be quiet, is more importantly than like running through an optimizer is combining layers too.
Mm-hmm.
So putting like 2 layers as opposed to like say it was a circle, like a outline, like radius circle, and then there's a circle inside of it. Yeah, like they cut that, yeah, do that and then add another circle inside there. Yeah, with this, yeah.
Well,
and then making this as opposed, well, I was saying like, so it's like
well, I was just doing a shape.
yeah, but anyways, but making an actual shape like that is going to have a smaller size than throwing 2 thin layers. So if that was combined into one, because it's going to be one color, it's better to have it as one shape. Look at that, that looks like something like a 90s tech company.
Sell this for $50 on Fiverr or something. Yeah, there we go. Where it's like the Star Wars, what's that, the Rebel symbol? Yeah. I don't know Star Wars that well. I'm sorry.
That's you with all the credit.
So yeah, I'll copy this real quick. But this is like the wiretap logo. If you notice within here, this definitions, it defines this linear gradient, and then it can be used within the SVG itself. So it sort of optimizes it as it's sort of can be called within here, which is sort of cool. So you can actually create SVG sprite maps by defining things and then having them called with it. It can get crazy. Just know SVGs are cool, and the fact that Sketch works essentially in SVGs makes it even cooler.
You have way too many opinions about them. It's like you're not really talking about SVGs.
I know, yeah. This could just be the SVG workshop.
Yeah, just
We know what a sprite is.
throw in there cats in this conversation too, it gets even nerdier.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
So like a sprite sheet is like an example. Instead of loading like 50, let's say, icons, which then is like each one is like an HTTP request. If you have one big sheet, you only have to request it once. It's a bigger file size, but the traffic is less. So it helps with the performance, and then the load is nice because then you automatically already have these icons. You don't have to wait for them. So then you can just like, all right, look over here to the like the edit icon compared to the trash icon.
It's like a bus versus 50 cars.
Yeah, exactly. So again, nerdy front end performance stuff, but it's fun.
I don't know, would you use Ajax and Paper?
No, it's what you can do with that is it's essentially you define each of them has like a certain position, and then you just change like look at point 50 and 50, and then have like the width be like whatever the icon size is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
It's all
one big thing. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we went down that rabbit hole. Let's get back out of there. So SVGs are cool. So we learned how to do fills. We can add borders as well. They behave how you'd expect. Same color picker. I can create the thickness of this to be sort of bigger so you can see it. And I'm in the camp of always having it be either inside or outside. Because if you have it in the center, it's hard to determine the actual boundaries of your shape. So if you notice this, I have my bounding box, and then the border is outside of that. If you have it inside, which is 90% of my stuff, the border is inside of that bounding box. If you have it in the center, you're just in the center. And then I don't know, it's hard to then align stuff, because then while I'm moving this around the canvas, all these red lines are telling me like how this is within relation to these other shapes. So this is aligned to the left-hand side of that shield, but the border is going outside of that, so they're not technically visually aligned. So just a thing. I always keep them on the inside.
I have a question. I don't know if
Yes.
this will come up later or not, but if you wanted to, say you had like 2 stars like up there, and you want to lock it 8 pixels from that, like lock it there, like constraints kind of thing, or have it from like interior. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I do.
I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah. So we can get to that. I'll write that down.
Okay.
So let's say positioning and pinning things, and absolute / relative or native. Close enough.
It was correct.
Yeah. So we got that. And another thing to note, again, since this is a color, you can change opacities within here. This is another reason why sometimes I like it on the inside, just because then it goes on there. But if I do want it on the outside, so that way that border is affecting the background rather than the thing within the circle. You can see now the black thing is on the outside. Cool. And then you can also just add as many as you like. And if you notice, there are these gear icons. For fill, I've honestly never used this thing. Non-zero and even odd, I've never gotten to the point where this has ever affected me. So, so hopefully it will never affect you. But borders, with that, you can have them not be just a solid line, but you can create dashes, gaps, and then make them have these different endpoints, whether they be straight or like curved borders. And if this was a square, the joins would make sense when it sort of hits those corners. One thing to note with Sketch is these arrows are notoriously bad, so don't use them. Just as an example, I'm just going to create a line real quick. So now I have a line. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. Don't worry about how I'm doing this, but the fact that arrows are bad is the goal of this example. So you can change the arrowheads to those 3 things. I'm going to make that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or I can make it like that. So as you can see now, that one is not as weird. But yeah, don't use arrows in Sketch. There are tons of arrows if you have to resort to arrows for something. You can create them yourself, or there are like lots of Sketch arrow templates out there because people just know that this is not good. Very weird. I honestly don't understand anything, how the arrows decide anything. Like what's determining the shape of this arrow, the size of the arrow. But the dashes work as expected. Gaps are sort of the gaps between the dashes. And you can sort of get weird with this. You can have multiple gaps and dashes. So Morse code, Esh style. So there's that. We're going to come back to our Rebel Alliance over here. You can also create multiple shadows, which is sort of cool. So I can create multiple effects to have a really nice sort of subtle. I can bring in the color of the red real quick. Disable that. This is really intense. Let's tone this down real quick. Something like that. And now I have this. Let's just continue with that. So this is not on an artboard. It's just sort of floating out in space. Now that I have it selected, what I can do is press the handy A key for the artboard. And if you notice on here, I have a new option called New from Selection. And what will happen is it will create an artboard around that object. The reason why this one is a bit bigger than what you'd probably expect, instead of it being like close to it, is because it's turned, and also these shadows. It's accounting for the fact that these shadows, like this one is blurred 24 pixels, is pretty crazy. So it's accounting for the fact that that shadow is going out there. So something to note when you export stuff out, which is going to be the next thing I talk about, if you have the artboard sort of smaller than the shadows, when you export it out, the shadows will look like they're just chopped off on the sides.
If you were to turn that shadow off, that larger 24,
Yeah.
and then resize the artboard to
Yeah.
object,
Let's do that. Boom. And then when I have this turned on, they'll now just be cut off. Like they're still there, just.
You can go back and resize the artboard again.
Boom. This one's a little bit smaller, because I guess I didn't turn this one on. I'm not really sure. Yeah. So there's that.
Well, it accounts for the
Turned.
rotation.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. I guess so. So, what I'll do now, because this thing is really bugging me, the fact that these box things are outside of it, but the shape is not that big. The reason why it's doing that is because over here, if you notice, I've rotated it 315 degrees. So it was normally, if I come back over here, make that a 0, the box acts like you'd expect. I'll put it back, Command Z with the undo. So what I can come up here and hit flatten. If I do that, if you notice the box is now back to normal, and my fill has changed a bit. The reason why is it made it so the rotation is gone. It's now just a flat object in the sense that just normal positioning. So then that changes the position of this, because that was relative to the rotation. So just one thing to know with that, sometimes it gets weird if you have gradients or things that depend on certain positions. And when you flatten them, well, yeah. But what is nice is sometimes, and I'm going to pull this in, if I have a bus. So this is Noun Project. It's pretty cool. It's free icons. It's nice. If you notice when I pull it in, I have all this white space over there. And that's because just like the view box of that is bigger, if you remember from the SVG. Just something's weird sometimes with Noun Project or SVGs that you might import into here. So what you can do is you can rotate it. And you can rotate it. I did that really quick. If you notice over here, I have like my little arrows that are, oh, it fixed itself. Sometimes it doesn't do that. These arrows let me resize it. If I hold down Command, it allows me to rotate it real quick. There is a rotate option up here if you wanted to do that method. And from rotate on the toolbar, you can set where the center point is, where it rotates. So if I wanted it to rotate from over here, I could. Yeah.
Just wanted to draw one.
Yeah. So that's one thing to note. If you are doing like any kind of iOS apps, I'm going to do this real quick. If we have like a cool header image and some overlaying stuff. And how I'm creating these rectangles real quick is pressing R for rectangle. And I'm going to make this a nice gradient real quick. That's fine. And if I wanted this to be a certain color, instead of coming over here to this color droplet well, if you press Control and C, you get the color picker, essentially. What's nice with that is you don't have to come over here, click the eyedropper, figure out where you want. You can then, as soon as you have an object selected, Control C. And again, it's your whole entire computer, not just Sketch itself. So sometimes that is nice if you want to pull up something on the internet. You're like, oh, I just want this black. Yeah. So we got that. I do actually want it to be white, though. So I can come in here, and then down here you have blur options. So if I make this a gradient, just for example, I blur it. If you notice, the whole object is being blurred by some kind of an amount. Just so you know, this is very intense. So if you have lots of objects that are blurred, you can really slow down your computer.
Or you can feel like you're not doing very well.
Yeah. And from here, you can also change the kind of blur. So that Gaussian is just the simple one. Motion one if you want some kind of action. So, and you can change the angle.
Yeah.
Ooh. Zoom, sort of how it sounds. It's like zooming out. And the thing that I was going to get to is background blur. So what happens here is it doesn't blur the object itself. It blurs the thing behind it. So I'm going to go here. And let's change this so it's not just a straight up rectangle. I'm going to change the radius over here so it's a little bit, nicer, softer. And this thing called smooth corners, what that is exactly how it sounds. It's the iOS-like corners. They're not perfectly round. They are more of a squircle. It's a square and circle combined. It's a unique shape that's hard to replicate. But it's now these smoother corners. It's really hard to tell sometimes, depending on the object. If you notice, it is the faintest thing. But with the smooth corners, there are no straight lines, essentially. With border radius, there are there are a straight line within there. The squircle, it's all around.
And how long has that squircle been around? Did Jobs come up with that?
That was an iOS 7 thing.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, it's been around for a little bit, maybe post Jobs, but yeah. So just so you know, if you do that and you want to get a pixel perfect version of this for the web, it'll take a little bit of work. For iOS, not so much. Squircles are easy to come by. So I have this background blur, and it's not really doing anything right now, but if I change the opacity of this, let me get a picture real quick. It's way more obvious there. Download.
And what is that? Is that a
A flower, I think.
No, I know.
All right, so now I have a flower. Oh, the bathroom's good.
Oh,
Yep.
Well, no, it's kind of, but it's in Canada. Before.
So I have this Reuben thing, and if you notice the symbol on the left-hand side, it's different from everything else. It's this picture icon because it is an actual image compared to a vector graphic. And it's huge. So I'm going to make it smaller. There we go. I'm trying not to use all the shortcuts. So if you notice it's way off the canvas, I can come over here and put it somewhere. So I can say 0, 0. It's going to go in relation to this artboard.
Why is the artboard highlighted when you did the coordinates?
No.
So like, how does it know to do it for that artboard?
Yeah. So the reason why is because it's within the artboard.
Okay, got it. Even though it was off the page, it was
Yeah.
closer within that one.
So if I collapse this real quick, this bus trolley thing is not within any artboard. But I can put it in here by dragging it. So it's not a part of this artboard, but since it's not within the artboard, it's not visible. So sometimes it's nice to know where things are. If you have a huge canvas or you have a small item and you're like, how do I find the thing? You can, I know the shortcut key. How to do it in real life, though, is here, view, and then zoom to. So if you do that into selection, which is if you hit command and then 2, you'll zoom right to it. It's not there visibly, so I can copy and paste it, but it's sort of nice. Then command 1 lets you go to like 100% view, and then command 3, command 3 sort of centers your canvas, your current zoom level, I believe, onto the object that you have selected, instead of zooming all the way in. So command 1, 2, and 3 are nice ways to like get around. All right, so I have this image. I'm going to put it behind this. If you notice, that background blur effect is happening. So it's pretty cool. You can use CSS to do this. It is a WebKit only thing, so you have to like do a prefix and like background blur and give it some options. It just won't render like that on any other browser other than, I think, Safari. iOS, it's pretty, it's a thing. So you can get some cool effects. All right. This is pretty, right? Okay. You can say no.
What are you trying to sell?
Yeah. So I have this thing, and I'm just going to create another square just because I'm going to do the noise. So if I want to export this artboard out into the world, I can come down here and say make exportable. If I click that, this pops up. 1x, this prefix suffix thing, and then the format. Right now, what I'm going to do, if you would like to follow along, you can, is export it in multiple different sizes, multiple file formats, and then make it so that they don't override each other by adding a prefix or a suffix. So I have 1x, and if I hit this plus over here, I can keep adding export options. So these are just the default ones that you get every time you hit plus. So with this would be twice the size. So it would be, instead of 811, it would be 1600 and something. 3x is 3 times that, and so on and so forth. And then I can change the file formats from PNG to JPEG if I didn't need transparency, or if it was more of a photo. Don't worry about TIFFs, really. WebP also probably don't worry about, just different image formats. But what is nice is you can also export out as an SVG. So yes, and that will export it as an actual file instead of just copying the SVG code from an object. Yeah. For an SVG, I'm not really sure.
I like to see what that
All right.
what it looks like.
That's going to happen. And also you can do a PDF. A thing to note with the PDF, though, is if you have lots of layers and with an object with lots of fills and lots of shadows, when you export out to a PDF, bless you, it gets really weird. It doesn't handle it that well. So if you have to export something out with lots of shadows and fills and effects, it's better to export it out as like a JPEG or a PNG first, and then convert that to a PDF using like Preview, just opening it up and then saving it as PDF, or however you handle your PDF needs. But it's just one thing to note that might catch you up by surprise one day. So we have this really beautiful modern art. And let's say I do this all the time. I export out 1x, 2x, 3x, SVGs, PNGs, JPEGs. This little slider thing, you can create different presets. So you can do one for the web, iOS, Android, or you can create your own. So if you always do these certain things, you have them there. So I'm just going to do for the, actually I won't do anything. I'll just do that. So I'm going to export this out. And I actually don't want it to be called Artboard 2 because that's not very descriptive. So what I can do is I can select it here or on the list. You can double click it, or how I like to do it is Command R to rename. And that works for anything. So if I wanted to rename this blur, I can select it. Instead of rectangle 4, hit Command R and be like, blur. And now it's that. There are lots of plugins that help you rename things faster if you have lots of items and you just want them to be like person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can just do that. Or you want to rename things from like primary to secondary really fast, and you have like 5,000 layers that say primary. So, yeah. Secondary. So let's name this work of art. Hit enter. And if you notice on the right-hand side, this is like a preview of my export. So if I have multiple things that I'm exporting out at the same time, let's do this. I also want to do this artboard. I also want to do this blurry thing on the artboard itself. I can hold down Command. I'll get to that later, but you can hold down Command and you can sort of select an object within something else. And I should now have the other things I've selected, but they aren't actually showing up yet. The reason being is I haven't made them exportable. So you'd expect that, hey, I'm exporting this out, I want to export everything else out at the same time. But it's sort of being cautious in the fact that you have only told Sketch you only want to export one thing. So if you notice I have all these export options here for my work of art. But if I come over here to this artboard, I don't have any options because I haven't made it exportable yet. So I can do the same thing, hit make exportable. Let's do Android. It does all these sizes, and then it does a prefix before the actual image itself. And it creates a folder for you, which is nice. So now I have this. I'll shift-click my work of art. Now I have these two things as like, hey, that's what you're doing. This section, though, gets a little weird when you have multiple objects selected that you're exporting at the same time, but the export options do not match. Nothing's wrong. You just don't see them all. You only really see one of them. It's usually the last one you click. So it's not broken. It will work. You're not going insane. And last thing is background color. Sometimes you like to have a background color on your artboard, such as black if you have a white icon so you can see it. But you don't want to include that background when you export it because you want the background to be transparent. So this is where you can mess with that. So I've made them black backgrounds just for purposes, but I'm not actually going to include those in the export of these images. Okay, time to hit the button. Whee! So it's going to go here on my desktop real quick. I can point it to anything, but that's where it's gone. Now I have tons of stuff. So it saves you the time of trying to export things out multiple times. I have now probably 10 or 12 things, all the different formats. Here's my 3x one. If you notice, it's hard to tell with the noise, but this is pretty messed up in the sense that it is grainy, but it's sort of more grainy than you probably expected. So if I go to the 1x version of that, which doesn't have any prefix, that is roughly what I was expecting. It's hard to tell on the screen, but on my screen, you can sort of tell the other one is a little bit jankier, just because it was exporting at a different size. And if you notice, it also created these folders, XHB, all these Android stuff. If I go in here, here's my image. So what's sort of cool is it's a little bit more advanced thing, but you can set it up so when you export stuff out, such as over here, anything you have before a slash will create a folder. So you'll see this when we get into symbols, there's ways of creating folders without actually creating folders and nesting and structure for your projects. And with slashes, that's sort of how you get it done. So I'm going to do it without doing it in this export view. I'm going to go over here and say, if you notice, this says shield/color. I'm going to duplicate that real quick by holding Alt. And what's cool with this is I've created a symbol library here at Wiretap that has all of our logos. So I can come in here and just change that to black real quick. I don't really have to mess with it. And if you notice, I changed it here, but it didn't change the name. So I'll do that real quick. So now I have shield black and shield color. I'll make them exportable. I won't do anything fancy. I'll just do 1x. Export them out. So now I will have a shield folder with black and color in them. So if you know how you're going to structure your project in development time, or just for your own purposes of just exporting stuff out, you can then sort of automate the folder creation and where things go by doing slashes. So you can get even more in depth and be like wiretap/shield/color. It'll create a wiretap folder, then a shield folder. The resulting image will be called color dot whatever the file extension is. So it's pretty cool that way. And a thing that might be unexpected if you name something with a slash and you're like, why does it keep creating folders? That is why. Cool. So I think we covered most of interacting with an object itself, except for absolute positioning, relative positioning, exporting stuff out, how to navigate the layers. If you guys want, we can take a little bit of break.
Can you just show one thing? This is more advanced, but one of the issues that comes up, and Sean and I were actually just talking about this the other day. I don't remember why, but we were. But an export in different formats, if you're using the blend modes, can be really screwed up. So that's another reason why, having the background there, you may not realize you have a blend mode on something, but when you export it out and you're trying to do it on a transparent, PNG, it just is completely screwed up. Or if you do a blend mode on an SVG, you can now do that in CSS, but you kind of have to go back and recreate that effect in your code. But then it's the weirdest one and the biggest screw up is actually an export to PDF. That's the one.
That's the one gets weird.
And that's the one that screws up a lot of designers in it. And a lot of times you're like, all right, I finished the work. Let me export this. It's send it to print, and you're like, why is this a solid black block on here? So I just bring that up. That I personally make that mistake almost every single time. I export it to a PDF, and it gets me every time. I don't know why I can't learn that.
Yeah. So that's a good point. this is really made for like digital design. You can do, and I have done print work within Sketch.
Yeah.
You have to do lots of math, just figuring out resolutions of stuff, bleeds and margins, especially because like all you have is pixels, which is nice because it makes it easier for us designing something that is usually dependent on pixels or positioning for that, but there's no real like, oh, pixel to inches correlation. You can sort of guesstimate, you can get ratios, but if you just export it huge and make sure, if you create a new artboard, they actually do have like paper sizes. There is a letter. It is 8.5 by 11. But at the same time, like you have to do math and figure out, okay, 8.5 is 612, and then you have to like sort of figure out how many inches, and then bleed and all that fun stuff. So don't use Sketch for print, really.
I still do because I think it's worth the trouble, so I don't have to have my memory hog Adobe product running. Like I avoid Adobe products just as much as I avoid Microsoft Office, because you open those up on your computer, something's gonna skyrocket. So.
I might be showing my naivete, but how hard would it have been for them to put something right there? You know, if you're doing paper size, wouldn't it be fairly obvious where you're going with it?
So it depends on like the resolution of the print, the like DPI, then also color management. How we were saying, like you can grab the color from your screen, but then you have to figure like what's the color output when you print this, because it's not related to like any kind of Pantone color or CMYK. Yeah, it's all RGB or HSB, no CMYK values. It then does like a approximation on the fly when it outputs, but it's not, if you're looking for like color, like things that purple is purple, this is not, you have to do lots of trial and error.
This is a stupid thing I've done. This is embarrassing to almost admit. Just because I love working in Sketch, I've saved a Sketch file and then opened it in Illustrator for like the last pieces of it and piecemealed it together. Just so I work in the program I like working in.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to note too. So when you export something out, if you export it out as an SVG, EPS, or PDF, those are openable within Illustrator and then editable. So you can come in and then edit the shape itself. It just can get weird if you have multiple fill effects, shadows, blurs, things like that.
If you ever want to have a really stupid debate, and it does come up about where to make logos, whether it's Illustrator or Sketch, that's like the tab versus spaces.
The after comma.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, people will get pissed. Like, they'll walk away from the conversation. See, that one's easy. It's definitely GIF.
Because I'm making peanut butter, sure.
Sorry for the side. All right.
Cool. So quick break, and then we can come back here and then try to like sort of make a website thing. We're good to go. All right, so we're gonna jump into the preferences real quick. You can get to that by hitting Sketch and then Preferences, or this is like a global Mac shortcut, holding down Command and then comma. It's really nice if you're in any program. That will 99% of the time work, as long as I'm selected.
Really awesome program. It's called Cheat Sheet, and if you hold down the command, it gives you all the shortcuts on any application that you're using. You have to put Cheat Sheet at OS X.
Yeah. This is cool for a week, and then it's not cool. I feel like. Yeah, and then sometimes I'm holding down Command and not really realizing it, and then it's just like, hey, did you know you can do all these things? But it is nice, especially when you have like a new program, you can just hold down Command and see what you can do from the keyboard.
Or if you're new to Mac.
Or new to Macs, yes.
Yeah, probably the most useful one, because every application handles this differently, is the paste format. So like keep formatting, remove plain text, and like paste as plain text.
Yeah.
Regular text.
It's like Command Option Shift V or
Yeah. Command Option Shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Command Control Shift V.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's like Command Shift V too.
Yeah, it's different. All right, so back to preferences. We have this bad boy. I have this as insert PDF and EPS as bitmap layers off because I like the actual vector objects themselves so I can edit with them. Export left to right because that's sort of how I work. If you work right to left, good for you. Switch that. The color profile, I have it as unmanaged. This is sort of a new thing. I'm just using whatever my computer color profile is. One thing to note is that the canvas, you can change how the default things move when you use an arrow key. So just for example, put this over here. I have a rectangle, I have another rectangle. If I press right or left, they go up and down 1. If I hold down Shift, they go by 10. I usually work in scales of 8. So I've been toying with the idea of changing this to 8 instead of 10. So that way when I move something, it would be 8, 16, 24, 32, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't know why. I'm actually just going to do it. I'm scared, but this is my life now. Yeah, I don't know. I just have anxiety over it. And if you do have 2 objects while I'm at it, is if you want to know the distance between the 2, if you hold down the Alt key, what's nice is whatever object you have selected, so I'm just going to create lots of things. So between this object and these other ones, if I hold down Alt and then sort of hover over something else, it will tell me exactly how far away it is, which is really handy. Can't really, it's weird if you don't have that. I'd always miss it in any other program that doesn't have that kind of feature. And within layers, one thing that I always do as well, I don't know if this is the default, is change flatten bitmap. So what will happen there is, you know how I brought in that flower picture from before into the artboard, or the canvas? That image was probably, let's just say, 5,000 pixels wide. What would happen with this is it would actually come in as 2,500. So that way, I'm sort of dealing with a smaller version of it. But since I usually export things at 1x and 2x, I'm sort of starting off from the point where if I export something at 2x, the image itself would then be 5,000 at the end. So that way the image won't look fuzzy, if that makes sense. Yeah. And also with new groups, I like to have it so when you select a group's content and click for new groups, I have that selected off. Description, I'll explain that description a little bit easier. How I think about it is, let's say I have all these objects. And we haven't gotten into this, but if I want to sort of group them all together, you can right-click and say Group Selection or Command G to make a group. And what that will do, it'll create a folder, then sort of your stuff's in there. You can have as many groups within groups. So if I want these here, yeah, you can get crazy. So by default, if I hover over this, it will select the group. It won't select the things within the group, just the group itself. What you can do, though, is if I want to select this rectangle, if you hold down the Command key, it allows you to go into groups and just select the object that you're actually hovering over, which is group things logically, but you don't have to mess with going through like folders and structures of things. You can just hover over it, hold down Command, click on the object you want. Life is good. Yeah. After that, plugins. there's a lot of plugins. I can send you a whole list of the plugins that I use. The one that I do recommend getting, first off, is called Runner. I always install that first on any new machine, is because with Sketch Runner, it's easier to install all the other plugins going forward. It also lets you become sort of a power user of Sketch as well. So if you're familiar with like Spotlight and how you can hold down Command and Spacebar, and you can, I have Alfred, sorry. So if you hold down Command and Spacebar, you have like this floating toolbar of sorts. I can do calculations in here. I can find files. So if I just type in wiretap, things like that. So Sketch Runner is essentially that same concept, but for Sketch. So up here, I can come here. If you notice on the right-hand side, the keyboard command shortcut for this is Command apostrophe, or I can come up here and hit Run. So what will happen once I do that is I have a nice floating window. We have 2 updates, probably because I updated Sketch, and there's updates for the plugins. What's nice with this is you can go, say, run a plugin or a menu action. So if you know you want to align things, you can say align, bottom, top, justify. You can scroll through this with your arrows or your mouse. You can say, one plugin I have is like content or copy. No, it's generator. Yeah, so I can generate a map or generate fake text, and I don't have to like go up here to plugins and find, as you can see, I have a lot, which one it is, and then click on the thing I want. Just a nice way to do things, especially when you don't know where to go. Go to, sort of how it sounds. Insert, create, how it sounds. Install is the one where you can install plugins from here, and it finds them on the internet, and you don't have to like find the website or anything like that. If you did want to look into what the plugin was, such as this fluid thing, don't know what that is. If you use Alt plus return, which is enter, it'll go to that home page, which is nice. And one thing, because I always have the hardest time remembering this, is this symbol for Alt. Imagine it being a fork in the road. So you have one path and then an alternate path. Yeah, I don't know if that's the real reason, but if you ever see that symbol, that's Alt. Command is that squiggly thing. The other 2 is Control and Shift. Control is an arrow. Shift is like an outlined arrow. Control, I think of like Galaga, your control commander. I don't know. I put those things in my head. It looks like a spaceship. So you can do that. So this is Fluid for Sketch. I don't know what it does, but this is the website if I want to learn more. But yeah, Sketch Runner is awesome.
I'm curious to know who came up with the icons for the shift one makes sense, but the option, the command, and the control.
I don't know.
Control is probably the worst out of all of them.
Yeah.
It's the most confusing.
So, yep, those are plugins. To the right of that is libraries, and this is where it can get really fun and crazy, especially if you end up working on a project with someone else or you're on a team. With the newest Sketch, they even included this Apple iOS UI design resources that is actually from Apple themselves. And what's really cool with that is if Apple ever updates the iOS UI design, you then get the updates. And the updates are all symbols. So if you change the symbol in one place, it then cascades throughout your whole project. You don't have to keep updating the same object over and over and over. It does give you a warning. So on the top right hand of your Sketch thing, it'll say like, a library has changed. You click that, and then you can verify you do want these changes to happen. So it's not like you'll just be blindsided that your whole project looks completely different because the library has been updated. I don't think so, unless you own the file itself. So I have stuff here for wiretap. I have like color palette, icons, images, logos, profile pictures, things like that. And these are all set up to live within our shared document. It's how we do it here. So you can do add library, and we have it in box, and just find the sketch file and I'll put it in. I think you can also. No, you can't. I thought you could. I thought you could like reference it from a website, but you can get away around with that by doing it like a shared Dropbox folder or something like that, or put it on GitHub, having some place remotely that you can sort of have synced to your local computer. And then presets for those export options. Cloud. That's how you can share sketch files with other people within like the prototyping sort of view, as well as just like all your artboards without the editing capabilities. Cool. So that was the preferences. I just wanted to make sure we're going over what we wanted to go over. That is done. Symbols. All right, we'll hit these really fast. Symbols. Symbols are awesome. I'm going to do this with a real quick example. Make this big. So if we're going to create a website or an app or anything, there is usually a menu. And that menu is pretty much consistent all the way through. We can, just to save some time, let's go from iOS. And up here in the symbols, since I have the iOS sort of library set up, I have access to this sort of symbol stuff. Does everyone else have that? Yeah. No? It's okay if you don't. So there is, if you bring in symbol, yeah. So you have to like click and drag it into the toolbar. Cool. So yeah, I have a symbol up there. If you don't have that, you can hit the customize toolbar. Yeah, you drag symbol from here up to wherever you'd like. Are you stuck in the symbol thing?
There's one that said create. I did create.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. Yeah, create symbol is also a nice one to have. Yeah, it's that guy. I'll throw that up there. So by default, you should probably have iOS UI design.
I downloaded an Apple iOS.
Cool. Yeah, that's good.
When I was bored.
Yeah. So I'm just going to grab something, navigation. So if you notice, there's all this like nesting of things, and how there's all these menus. That's achieved using those slashes. So I'm just going to bring in this navigation bar real quick. And then if you notice on the left-hand side, you have like this link thing. The layer is like linked and then iPhone X /bars/ really long name. So I can't actually go in here and like move where that title is or make that star a circle or something like that from this view. On the right-hand side, the context menu of this, you do have lots of overrides. And this is super advanced stuff, like trying to get all these to work. But just to explain them is using that nesting structure, you can create different variations of like the title, the backspace, the back button, and the star. You can come in over here and then change them. So if I click that, I can change it from the status bar being black to the status bar being white. And now I can't see anything. Or segmented controller. So these are just overrides that are essentially symbols that are nested within symbols, which is within symbols. Advanced stuff, but we'll dig into this a little bit, just because symbols are like the most powerful thing within Sketch.
This is what, when symbols got this upgrade about a year and a half ago, and it hands down blew away everything else, and everyone just tried to copy them. Like Photoshop tried to copy this with the release, and I still don't understand how Photoshop one works.
Yeah.
Similarly, like their artboards. Tim was telling me the other day, like artboards are actually really cool in Photoshop. I'm like,
It could be. But you also do have like these text overrides. So where it says first and second, where if I type dog and cat, it updates over there, which is nice. And then also icon, if you notice, these do have overrides. If I did want to make it into that circle, so then you can also display none, which is also a thing. So I can just get rid of something or have it there. So you can mess with things. But what we want to do right now is actually dig deeper into this symbol. It's a pretty complex one, but it'll be a nice one to look into.
Sean, I don't think that there is a none. I think they made a name.
There is a none.
Since when?
Since lately. Yeah. In the past couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I used to
make a none empty, yeah.
An empty one, blank one.
Okay. So this looks, I can't actually edit the iOS one because it's linked. So I can say unlink. So now I have a local copy of this symbol instead of that shared library that I actually don't own. And if you notice, this page is symbols. You will have, if you create at least one symbol, Sketch will create a symbols page for you, and that's where all your symbols will live. And there's a handy return to instance button, which brings you back to where you came from. So I was on page 1 in this cat-dog scenario. I double-clicked into it, and it brought me to the symbols page of that symbol. And then I can go back. And then on the left-hand side, if you notice, my link used to be a link icon for my layer. Now it's this like symbol icon or a refresh-looking thing. That's just telling me it is a symbol locally here instead of linked to this template library that I don't have control over exactly. So going into here, what's nice about this is since this header is going to be on every page that we have, we can mess with stuff. So I can make the size smaller. I can, this is where it's another symbol that's linked to that other template that's bringing into here. So I'm just going to mess with the title right now. So I'm going to go back to my instance. And if you notice, my cat-dog scenario, the title is small. And if I paste this over to these other two, I can change it to like fish and something. Wire frame. So these sort of are consistent, and then I can change the title to something else. But if I go back to my symbol, and I also just want to add a red square, a gray square. I've been burned on this so many times. If you notice, I now have 3 symbols instead of 1, which is not what you want to do. That's because I copied and pasted the symbol from here to over there. I don't know why that's the behavior. What you can do, if you want to bring a symbol from one place to another, instead of hitting Command-C and then Command-V, hold down Alt it'll create a duplicate of it, and it's not considered a copy. And then if I go back to my symbols, I'll get rid of these two, and I'll do it again. Over here, I have one. I don't understand. So use Alt if you want to copy something from a symbol from one place to another, and you want the symbol to just be one symbol.
So then when you change it, that gray square to a blue or whatever,
yeah.
There.
So I'm going to do that. And since now I only have one symbol that's on 3 artboards, that is now reflected within everywhere that symbol is. So I'm going to create my own symbol. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make a rectangle.
I was wondering where those extra ones came from. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, silly. Silly, silly, silly.
There's no way to combine them afterwards.
Nope, 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 nope. So I'm just going to make this like that. Just put a circle, which is O if you want an oval. R for rectangle. I don't think triangle has one. That's why I have it up there. So this is really looking good. And then I'm going to have option 1. And how I got the text there is I pressed T for text. I typed. You can also do insert text. T is faster. So I have these, and I'm going to align them. So I'm going to select the triangle and jigga. And then up top here is how you do alignments. So I want them aligned in their centers. So that's what happens there. So I'm just going to do that for these other 2 options. I was also really bad at aiming with my text. So I'm going to select all of the text, holding Shift, and then aligning those to the bottom of themselves. And I can do the same for these shapes. Probably want to align them to their centers. So now they're all even. If I want to get really fancy, let's group them. So I'm selecting them both. You can right-click, say Group, or Command-G. Do that again, and do that again. And now if I want to really get fancy, select them all. Then over here, distribute them horizontally. So that way there's enough space in between them that they look good. So it's going to ask you this: if you don't have enough pixels in between them, you can distribute them unevenly, which means there's going to be like one has more space than the other. I don't like to place them on subpixels, which is like 8.2 or 8.3, because one, it'll look fuzzy when you export them out, if you are going to export them out. And 2, it's just, if you are just using this as a mock-up for someone, if there's like 1 pixel difference, you sort of know, like, hey, that's probably how you distribute them evenly. So we got that. So just to show you, I'm holding down Alt. There's 80 pixels in between option 1 and the square, and 81 between the square and the triangle. I could just manually move this one over 1, and now we're good. And then I'm going to group them all, because these are my menu options. Then select this gray box, and then align them horizontally and vertically. Now things are all right with the world. So we did that, but we didn't name anything. We've been really lazy with that, or at least I have. So I have all these groups, triangles, and options. And we want to make this a menu that we can then put in all of our screens going forward. And if you noticed with the iOS one, they had pretty descriptive titles and things like that. So we're going to do the same thing for ours, so that way if we hand this off to someone else, or just us in like 5 months' time have to come back to this project, we have some idea of what's going on. So I'm going to, real quick, ungroup these. Now that the grouping has been done its job, it vertically and horizontally aligned that. To ungroup something, you can right-click and ungroup it. Or you can do Command-Shift-G, which is just a shift to the G. I don't know, man.
That's how you remember it.
Yep. So we have these. And I'm going to actually go in here, select them all, and make sure that they're aligned center. The text alignment is there. So if we have a menu option here going forward that it's like that, it's centered to the triangle rather than to the left. So we have that. So what I'm going to do is, we could get really fancy, but I'm going to do a simple version for now. For option 1, we'll leave the text on here that says option 1, but we're going to change the name of the layer. So it's an important thing to know is, by default, the text that you have here will be the layer name in the beginning. But if you notice, oh, it did change. If you update the text and never touch the layer name will update to reflect what the text is. So if I come in here and say option 2, the layer name will be option 2. But if I click this, you can double click that or Command R and say option 1, which is what it actually is. The layer name will be changed, but not the text. It's helpful, and you'll see why in a second, because you have to like explicitly go out of your way to rename a layer. So I'm going to make this, I don't want to rename the text. I'm going to rename the layer. Let's do option 2. And over here, we're going to make that option 3. Oh, option 3. And another thing that's nice to know is if you're doing something and you want to change your mouse cursor to just a normal arrow. So let's say I'm making a rectangle. I make another rectangle. But I'm in this rectangle mode. So to get out of it, you don't press R again. You press Escape. Same thing for editing text. So if I'm changing this to like test, if I press Enter, it'll just create new lines, which is not what I want. I'm just going to delete all that.
You just need to escape out of it.
Yep. You press Escape, and it's all good. I know in the beginning, when Sketch first introduced that, everyone was like, how do I do things compared to like Illustrator or Photoshop? Now Photoshop and Illustrator, now that's an option. You can just press Escape and get out of something when you're editing text, which is where it's nice. Cool. So now we have these labeled layer names over here. And what we're going to do is going to group all of these things. So the bottom rectangle plus these 3 menu options. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm just going to name it, let's say bottom menu, or menu, and then you get fancy / bottom menu, or just bottom. So we did a lot of work, but visually not much has happened yet. So what we'll want to do to get this ball rolling is we're going to create symbol. There is that option, create symbol. I have set it up, and if you want, I can send you this. I have a whole list of custom shortcuts. I'm a shortcut master kind of guy, where I can easily create a symbol by doing Command, Alt, Control, Space at once, and it just creates it for me. Some of that is handy, especially if you are aligning stuff, because it can get tedious if you're trying to align things all the time. I'll put this above that so it actually appears. Oh. Yep. Let's put above that. Because it can get tedious going through here, hitting alignment over here if you have like 50 times. So I set up like quick shortcuts you can do to then do that to like left, right, center, and vertical, bottom, top. Whee. You can do a disco. And one thing we can get into as well is, I did by accident, is with these layers, like the Boolean, you can combine them, subtract them, intersect, and difference. We sort of did that with the Rebel Alliance thing. But there are some little quirks with that are helpful to know, like, why is this shape the way it is once I hit this button? Because sometimes they don't act like you expect. But we can do that in a little second. So we have menu, button. I'm going to create a symbol. It's going to ask me what I want to name this thing. And luckily, I already named it what I want, menu/bottom. There we go. So now the layer itself is now just menu/bottom. Over on the right-hand side, if you notice, we have these overrides. And they are organized with option 1, 2, and 3. So if I come in here and just do 1, 2, and 3, it updates my artboard. I don't have to mess with layers, and it's sort of nice. So that way, if we create a new menu over here, we don't have to have the same options. Let's say it's just a different part of the app. This does not affect the other one. But let's say if we want to come in here and make sure all these are different colors, just that red will then still be applied all over. So it's really nice, especially if you're making a consistent global thing, but you want to edit that locally depending on the context of your app. What you can get really fancy is having all of these icons also be symbols, and then you can interchange those along with like the overrides, which is what the iOS template is doing over here, where you can have an icon that's a square or a circle or a star. So you can just keep nesting.
So you could put your trolley in a square, for example.
So if I double click into this, we can do that right here. I'm going to...
I just want to be, we're 40 to 20 till.
Cool.
Yeah. And there's something, as you're also doing this, I was going to send you an element collage starter, just as a relationship to also think about symbols.
Awesome.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. Yeah, so knowing that we're short on time, symbols, shared styles. So there are two ways of having your thing be consistent throughout your whole app. One is symbols, which is the easiest and probably the most preferred way. Another way is shared style, and that could be for text or for an object, such as a circle. So over here on the right-hand side, if you notice right now it has no text style. So I can come in here and say, create a new one. I can name it whatever I want. Let's just say header. So now I have a header text style. And if I create a new text layer, by pressing T, I'll just say gorillas. So we have that. And I'm going to make it the header as well. Luckily, it was already that thing. So I'm going to make this big gorillas. When I'm over here, you'll notice this has an asterisk. There's this like refresh thing. So if I click that, it changes all of my headers everywhere, updated to the style that I have selected. So I'm going to change this back. If you notice, got that same thing. But if I click over here on the one that hasn't been changed, I don't get that refresh option. So I'm actually, instead of refreshing it, I'm going to create a new text style from here and just say, they can cascade. It doesn't reflect that in the sense that if I change it over here and here, these two do have the refresh thing because they have been changed from the original. If I'm over here, I can't tell the other ones that have changed to change back.
It's like parent, it's like another.
Sort of, yeah. I can then hit over here and then, yeah. Yeah, so I got a small thing. I have a header, and I can come in here and change the header to small. So now I have multiple ones. I can organize my text styles, so if it gets crazy, or I can just can I rearrange? Nope, cannot rearrange. They're alphabetical.
So it's similar, this is another one of my pet peeves, like being really organized with these. Because in a project you may have variations on them, but it's very important to name them as something, not just like caption, like the defaults that people do that really bother me.
Yeah. So that's where like the slashes are helpful, because then you can be like, okay, what's this relation? Oh, it's a title slash header 1, H1, H2, H3. Caption slash small slash big slash primary or default. And you can come in here and delete them if you want to. So same thing that you can do with text, you can also do with shapes. So if we're just going to make this circle, we can create a new layer style here. And even if it's not a circle, like I have this rectangle, but I can still apply this shapes style to that. I can rename it real quick so it's not oval style, just style. And then same idea, if I update it here, it'll update everywhere else.
That's nice.
There you go. But what's sort of, I don't use shared styles as much, just because, as you saw there, I have to update it. You can do manual overrides, but they're not as nice as symbols where you can have nesting and have abstract away lots of the things and have just like everything that you have to do within symbol. With this, it's a little bit more loosey-goosey. That's the best way to put it. Dun, dun. I think we covered forward dev. And then I'll do this now. Get to that later. So positioning things, especially if you're dealing with any kind of responsive sort of type of thing for websites, apps, or just simply you have a page or an object and you just made it smaller and now everything's wrong. Luckily, there's two ways to go about it. The one native way through Sketch I'll show you, and there's this Anima plugin that Nick Holmer showed me this week, which is really cool. It uses auto layout. It's a little bit advanced. Have you used that? Or no? Oh, okay. Yeah. It's nice because then you can set up, like, if you have a grid of cards and you're like, oh, the space in between them should always be 16 pixels in between and then 20 pixels in between. Even if you like move things around, it'll just refit back to that. And then you find it at one place and then it changes everywhere. It's crazy, but that is some next level stuff. What we can do in Sketch though, without a plugin, is let's make a card. So other than rectangle, which is R, if you wanted a rounded rectangle, have it that sort of squircle thing, is U. And by default, it gives you some kind of border radius. So I'm just going to have it 8. I guess I'll do the squircle thing. Yeah. So I have this, and then I'm going to make the fill this light gray, then have a shadow real quick. Nice little subtle thing. Yeah, sort of popping out. Cool, got this. And I'm going to make the card about yay big. So within here, I'm going to have a header, body, and a footer. That's how I usually think about most things. If they can fit in that box, it's a nice way to just name header, body, footer. So I'm going to have this like that. If you notice, I have this square thing, but it's not a squircle. So what I can do is I'm going to line it up here. Then this shape itself, I'm going to make it a mask. So you can press this mask option up here. I always forget that it's there. So I right-click the layer and say mask. So what a mask does, anything above it will only show up if it's contained within these boundaries. So I'm going to create another rectangle over here. And since it is above this squircle thing, squircle mask card, it's over there. It's just not showing up. But I'm going to scoot it over. And that's where it is. So it's nice to then get this effect where everything's contained within this card and it has a cohesive feel, and I don't have to like manually change everything above it to fit that dimension.
And you made that mask out of the lowest layer?
The lowest layer. You can keep doing multiple masks.
Okay.
Yeah. And also to avoid like masks clipping things that you don't want them to mask, such as this. I actually want that there. But this squircle mask is giving me some problems. So the way to get around that, or the way you have to get around it, is grouping that option. So that's contained within its group. It will only apply to things above that within that group. Mm-hmm. So we have this. I'm going to have this light purple thing. Then I'm going to add some text real quick. Headline. Not make it red. Make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to do this sort of cool. Here we go. Yeah. Got this thing. Cool. We have this. Then we're going to have some content stuff. Where'd that go? Stuff is here in the middle. I'm going to select this, the squircle and the stuff, make sure that they're aligned. So got it in the middle. And then I'm going to have like an edit button here eventually with like a pencil icon or something. Cool. So this is my card. I'll make sure that the circle is in this group. So we have this card. And if I'm going to create another one over here, if I resize it, if you notice, by default, things are like sort of where they are, but get messed up. So we'll have to do a little bit of editing. And what I'm going to do real quick as well is, let's do card squircle. And then let's make that a symbol. So that way if we do anything, it'll be reflected everywhere. And we can do some overrides and things like that. So we got that. Another way to duplicate something is, for the first one, I held down Alt and like dragged it. Now that I've done that, I can hit Command D, and it'll respect how much I've dragged it before, and it's smart enough to do that. If I didn't drag it, if I just have it here and hit Command D, it'll put it right on top of the first one. So it's not like you haven't done anything, it's just simply like copy and paste at that point. But I did want to do that Alt thing. Cool. I have lots of cards, lots of stuff. Extend this artboard. And we're going to go into the squircle itself. Here we go. So we're in the symbols page now. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to ungroup these because that was only really to create the symbol name nicely and to avoid the masking. But now that it's in its own artboard, we don't really need that. So I'm going to ungroup it. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to start at the bottom right because this one's a little bit easier. So I'm going to click that. And the thing that we're going to be looking at right now is this resizing section. So you have this box with some like indicators, as well as fixed width and fixed height. Well, I know that I'm going to have this will be always these like 13 by 13. So I'm going to make sure that fixed width and fixed height are selected. I also want to make sure that it's at the bottom and the right every time I resize it. So I'm going to hit bottom and right. Click stuff, and with this, I can't really do fixed width or height. It's just going to be content. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But I do want to make sure it's in the center. So I'm just going to click the center one, and that will make sure that it's pinned in the middle always. What we could do, if we wanted to sort of make sure that nothing gets weird, is, I don't know how that will work. We'll just do the headline first, and then we can experiment a little bit later. So with the headline, we want probably in the top left. And then I'm going to group the headline and this, I'm just going to say card, title, background or something. Group them. That will always be at the top, and the left and the right. So what that will do is it'll make sure that the top of that will always be at the top. It will also extend to the left as we group the right. With that being said, this headline, now that I have it at the top left, this is not in relation to the whole artboard thing, to this group, which I'm just going to call like header. So as you keep groups, this resizing option is relative to the group itself, not the whole entire thing. So if things are acting weird, just sometimes it's that nesting of selectors. So this should work. And the background itself, I do want this background to have like a fixed height. We're just going to do top left, right. All right, we did some work. Let's go over here. I'm going to change this one, see if we did this right. All right, this is working, right? Sort of, kind of. Yeah, that's weird. So let's go in here. It's probably this headline, the header. True. So that's another thing to keep track of. True. Yeah. So we did pin it to the top and the left, but since the text will be center aligned to that's where it's coming from. There's a lot of like moving parts.
And pro tip is when you have one of these selected before you change, if you're going to go from like this being like a fixed width, so like Sean is expanding from one side, you change the arrangement of it, the alignment left, center, or right before. What you want to do is change the alignment first and then change the width on it. Because if you don't, then it like jumps over. Like that happens to me all the time with center line.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll move over to the width. It's offset by the origin of it.
Yeah. So for all the text items I've done so far, I've simply hit T and clicked somewhere and started typing. You can create a text box. That's like, you can do insert T or clicking T and then dragging. Then your text will be sort of confined to that predetermined width and height that you made. You can always modify that later over here. But if you notice, the text gets cut off because the text box is only a certain size.
Hey Sean, what was that command to open up the color?
Control C.
Is that really?
Yeah.
No. Oh, wow.
Control C is the best.
You got me.
And while we're at the text, within options, you can do a couple different things, such as creating sort of a list, underlining stuff, double underlining, strike through. Or I use this a lot is text transform. So you don't have to write in uppercase or lowercase all the time. You just write normally and then transform it to what you'd like.
But that comes with warning because the preview mode is different than the editing mode. So if you have it in lowercase, it actually changes the width and the height and the line breaks or like that.
Yeah, so I've typed it up like this, but then once I hit escape, it applies the text transform, which then it looks like this. So we have, let's get rid of that. Cool, we have that. And then I think with this, I'm just gonna pin it to the left and the right, not the top and the bottom. See if that fixes our weird issue. Oh, I see what's happening. I'm gonna go in here. So with that, it's saying, probably gonna pin it to the right. Sometimes it's a guess and check sort of thing. No.
You don't have a width on it.
I don't have a width on it. So if I created a group, this is what I was going to do, but I thought it was going to be a bit too fancy.
No, the text box.
Text box?
If you make the text box.
Like an actual width?
Yeah, so it all fits it.
Okay, cool.
It should.
So that's also a nice thing. If you have just hit T and started typing, and you're like, oh, doesn't have a set width and height, I didn't make this a text box. If you grab the handle and then just resize it, it will then become a text box, essentially. Same thing if you come up here and then like tell it the width and height. So what we could do, if this was real life, I'd probably put this on the left. I'll make this black. Because it doesn't have a fixed width. We set a width, but we didn't tell it to always have that width, I think. That doesn't make sense. Text is always weird.
Can you like put it inside something that does have it, or group it with something
Yeah.
you can see, and then that would fix it?
I think this is,
That's probably a workaround.
I think it's just because I had the text just straight up in the middle.
If you make it center,
Mm-hmm.
and you put it in the middle,
Yep.
I don't understand. Is it the vertical that's throwing it off?
There we go. So yeah, we had to set a width to it.
Yeah.
Pin it to the left and the right. That was the magic formula.
What happens when you make it vertically smaller on the other page, though?
Vertically smaller.
Like shrink it down, right?
Oh, it will get overlapped. Like it will go over here.
Okay, cool. That's perfect.
Yeah. So what we could do is to make sure it's always in relation to this top, so it doesn't hit over the headline. We pin it to the top. There we go. That's the magic.
I don't know why that wasn't working before, though. You had a...
I think it's because it wasn't a text box. It didn't have a predetermined width. Well, what's nice is we figured that out once, and it applies to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's nice. So that is our symbol that we created from scratch. They can override. Boom.
How cool is that, everyone?
So cool. Cool. And career stuff. Well, before we get into that, any this, yeah,
Questions just for sketch.
yeah, this Squircle thing is just gonna eat my life.
Because I'm putting the camera on you, can you make your screen black because you're backlit, it's going to be hard to see?
Yeah. Let's make it huge.
Or you can just go to your desktop. There we go. That helps.
That helps. Cool. Awesome. So, yeah, any last sketch related sketch questions? I know we covered a lot from all the tools that you can use, where things are, how to create fills, backgrounds, all the options are there, and shared styles, symbols, artboards.
Sean,
There's a lot
can
of
you
ground.
turn your airdrop? I was going to drop you something.
Sure.
I promise it'll be appropriate.
I was gonna say, do you trust him?
I wouldn't do
And then I
it.
set him up on camera.
All right.
Cool.
Let's see what I'm looking for.
I still don't see it on.
But
Well,
basically, this is,
oh.
yeah, what?
While Kevin's doing that, a quick thing with the new prototyping stuff. It's really, really simple. There's this menu up here. And if you notice, the shortcut key is W to add a link to Artboard, and to prototype is Command P. Or you can come up here, hit link, hit preview. Same thing. So if I have this amazing app that we made, if I have this, right here, this box, I hit W, and I can then tell it to go to there. If I'm over here, I can hit W, and I can go to somewhere else. Or I can go up here, and it'll go back to the screen that it previously got me there, which is nice.
Do you have to detach from symbol to do that, or like down there? Is there any issue with?
Oh, these?
Yeah.
Yes, but no. Then the last sort of option is if you hit W, and then up here, instead of trying to manually find an artboard, if you had like a crazy complicated app, it will then show you just a selection of stuff that you can go to easily, which is pretty cool. And then for the menu options down here, if we wanted one to go to our crazy card layout, you can't actually select that since it's all one symbol. We can't go into the group. But what you can do is create a hotspot, which is, I don't know. So help, I don't know if you've ever used help in any other Mac program, but it's nice because whatever you're trying to find, if there is a menu item for it, it will show you exactly how to get to that menu item instead of just like doing it. So yeah, like look at this. Yeah. So I use help all the time. So hotspot, I then drag that.
I like the sound effect too.
Yeah, now I have a hotspot of 1 that can go over here, which sort of gets around the whole fact that I can't click into that. So now that we have a beautiful monster, I'm gonna hit preview, and I now have this interactive prototype. If I click this box, it takes me to here. This blue thing takes me there. 1 takes me to that card, which is really funky. So we have that, and then I can hit back. And this flag thing is telling you if you just were to start preview, there's a starting point for the prototype that you just made. Yeah.
Sean, I did not see, you did not come up, but basically I created this little like starter kit for starting projects, and it has like some of the naming conventions and symbols, like following creating colors and palettes, and then in just one spot, it's an element collage, so then you can have a reference. So what I like to do is just create an artboard of all my single components, and Sketch does do it for you in symbols, but it's just a really nice way to start things off, and then see it in one board and play it around. And then as you start designing out pages, after you have the individual pieces made out, you're kind of just drag and drop. It's incredibly helpful when you're doing the headers too.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. And one other thing is with the prototyping, you can set the animations that happen. So if you want like a pop-up window from the bottom to happen, or from the middle or down top, you can set that. It's not as sort of built out as to other prototyping tools like Principle, which allows you to do lots of complex, very native-like animations. This feels like just like to get the flow down. By Nick Homer and his baby. So that is, in a nutshell, some